Last week, we were lucky enough to catch up with Atlas Sound, the side project for Deerhunter frontman Bradford Cox. We had a chat to him. It was kind of an interesting little chat that we had. And here's a little taster of the interview. This is Bradford talking about his take on the indie rock scene.
I like early rock and roll. I like glam, especially when glam was sort of experimental, like Roxy Music and T-Rex and Eno. But I mean, the ultimate, like, if I had to identify myself as if it were a political affiliation, I mean, I'm a garage rock person, you know. I mean, I spent ages listening to a lot of, Back to the Grave comps and stuff growing up, and I mean, I think of Deerhunter as a garage rock band, you know. I've always thought we were kind of like the weird Black Lips, but then I guess, because so many people have reviewed us in the context of being an indie rock band, that's just what we're seen as. And so once people start seeing it that way, that's just kind of how it starts being, But I detest indie rock for the most part. Don't really have any interest in it. I'm much more interested in things that are either more primitive or more refined. Indie rock is sort of neither. Yeah. It's sort of like half baked. Yeah, that's what I think of when I think of indie rock. I think of just people making music because it's what they're supposed to do. I got the haircut, I don't know. I think of indie rock as this really pathetic aesthetic. Yeah. Well, that rhymes.
I like that.
I like rock and roll.
Here on Triple R, from the Deerhunter record, the most recent one, Halcyon Digest, the track He Would Have Laughed, dedicated to the late great Jay Retard. And we were lucky enough to catch up with Deerhunter frontman Bradford Cox last week, just before their show, and we asked him about the lyrics from that track that closes the record, He Would Have Laughed, in particular the line, only bored as I get older. And we started off by asking Bradford if he found this to be true for him personally.
Maybe a little bit, but I think that was written out of character. I mean, I think I was writing from another person's perspective. But, I mean, I can relate to it, definitely. I think we all can. Youth is where there's a lot of potential and excitement, and, as you age, you begin to see your potential dry up, and you see doors closing.
That song, He Would Have Laughed, which closes the album, I guess in some senses has this classically pessimistic view, like this interpretation that you just discussed, but also like a sense of optimism and, maybe a broader analogy at the, absurdism of life and the possibility for comedy or entertainment and, a positive outlook within that. Is that something which you think informs a lot of the spiritual dimension of the record?
It's an excellent question, but I do have to be very upfront about the fact that I have no idea what I'm talking about.
There must also be some like deeper or even a subconscious understanding of maybe some of the ideas that you're exploring there.
Well, my understanding of them is just as valid and just as, accurate as yours. So, I mean, I don't think that's disingenuous. My process is I don't think many people understand it. Do you make music? Okay. He's shaking his head no. Well, I don't really think I could explain it totally to someone who doesn't make music, because I think people think music is a way that people make statements that are calculated, and people think of musicians as people that sit at a piano or a guitar and compose statements, and it's really not that way for me. I just do things a little bit more sporadically and improvise them.
Obviously, people do relate to your albums in ways that you can't be held accountable for, and as you said, everyone's interpretation is equally as valid as your own. But at the same time, do you feel, though, as a musician, as someone who makes music that's connecting people with emotions, you're in that sense an intermediary, and you feel then any responsibility at all towards how people respond to or interpret the music?
I agree with the idea of being an intermediate,
Someone who, an intermediary, I guess, yeah.
Or like a vessel or a channel kind of thing. But In terms of responsibility, no. I don't really feel responsible. No.
Or does it in any way impact on what you do ever? Like that idea of how people might be interpreting your music, does it interfere with or?
No.
Okay.
No. I'm not really interested because I didn't expect people to like it in the first place. So I think that the easiest way to fuck anything up is to start trying to make it formulaic or, oh, well, this is what people like, so this is what I'll do.
Yeah.
Well, this is a question about the music that doesn't relate to lyrics so much, but I guess on the new album, I was really impressed with the use of saxophone on the record.
Yeah.
What inspired the use of saxophone on the album?
Well, I like a lot of, I like T-Rex and, I like the Stones, the Rolling Stones, and we were listening, that Exile on Main Street album was reissued. It's one of my favorite albums. And I just really enjoyed the way that a lot of the songs explode into sort of the sax things. I would have, wanted a whole horn section or something, but I'm just not musically advanced enough to be able to arrange something like that. And I don't really feel like hiring somebody. I don't like hiring people to arrange my music. So it sort of ended up being just a sax. I kind of wanted a Roxy Music sax thing going on. I just make them faster than people can release them. And then it's just I'm not going to wait around to play the game. I'm trying to sell it to somebody. I'd rather just give it away. It doesn't it shouldn't get reviewed as much, really. Pitchfork did a kind service and gave it a very mediocre review, although I don't really understand their logic considering... whatever. I didn't really understand why they had to go out of their way to give my personal recordings a mixed review, recordings I wasn't charging for, recordings that were not intended to be viewed as, a complete product. But, it's a way to escape all the stuff I don't really like, the album cycle, the crap. Honestly, I just make stuff.
Yeah.
I have a lot of free time in between tours and stuff. I don't really have much of a social life, and I don't really want one. I like to spend a lot of time alone with my instruments and stuff. So that's what happens. Just like this. I was just making some music when you walked in. This is what I do. When I'm bored, I either listen to music or I make music, or I'm, buying groceries.
Do you have this vision of any particular aspects of your musical curiosity that you're keen to kind of explore?
Always.
Yeah.
About 20 or 30 at a time.
Yeah. It's a bottomless pit, obviously, the music, exploring music of the past.
I'm going to make this I'm going to make electronic folk record, I don't know. Or this, or I'm going to do that, or I'm going to, I wonder what would happen if I worked with this person, or just a lot of ideas.
Yeah. And I guess fortunate that you're in a position often to make a lot of them kind of happen to an extent.
Anybody's in that position that has motivation and wants to devote their life to music.
Yeah. I was thinking about a quote about the idea of what musicians do is that they are in some ways intermediaries of emotions, when it requires a lot of patience and an ability to cope with fear. Are you ever afraid of any of your musical pursuits? Does anything scare you as a musician?
Be more specific. What are you asking, really?
Nothing sinister, I assure you, but I'm just curious as to whether or not there are things that ever daunt you as a musician.
What would you imagine?
I don't know, an inability to conquer a particular style, or an inability to kind of express yourself in a particular way?
No.
But is there anything then other than those two examples?
Like what?
But then I'd be listing examples.
What?
Then I would just be listing examples hypothetically.
Well, list some. I don't know. I don't know what you're asking. Really.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'll drop that one.
It's a good question, but get somewhere with it.
Okay.
Pursue it.
Well, obviously your role.
Just keep asking questions.
Your role obviously is your responsibility to yourself as a creative person making music, as you say, continuously. But nonetheless, people are following you and they're interested in what you're doing, and they will critique and analyze beyond that which you can control. But
I don't mind criticism.
yeah,
I'm not afraid of that.
no.
Okay, so next, what else could I be afraid of?
Let's see. Ever being like, okay, well, lyrically you're saying that you can't always take responsibility for what you're saying, but are there certain philosophical ideas, or are you afraid of anything that you don't think that you could explore lyrically in your music?
I don't even write the lyrics. They just come out of nonsense.
Yeah.
So I don't really feel afraid of that because, I mean, I'm a rock musician. I'm not like a philosopher, you know? I mean, it's just nonsense. It's all absurdity. And people get an emotional kick out of it, which, I mean, I get an emotional kick out of rock music, which is absurd, but, you know, I mean, that's just the kind of person I am, and that's the kind of person, I guess, that listens to my music, and I don't think those people are holding me responsible, most of them. And I guess to answer your first question, the things that make me afraid are the boringness of hotel rooms, 17-hour flights, bad food, the instability of everything, and being away from my instruments and stuff.
You said that you were just listening to music before we came in. What were you listening to?
It was on shuffle.
Oh. Anything good come up?
Yeah, lots of really good stuff. I don't know. Let's see. It was Casino versus Japan. Before that, it was the Beach Boys and Sam Prekop. And then it was Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark. And then Roy Harper. Those are the last few shuffled items.
That's excellent.
On 3RRR from the Time Warp virtual 7-inch released by Atlas Sound a couple of years back now. Springtime Instrumental, the name of that really gorgeous track. And Atlas Sound is kind of the solo side project for Deerhunters, Bradford Cox, who are in the middle of chatting to at the moment. And we're about to head into the last part of our interview with Bradford from last week. We asked him about festivals, and this is what he had to say.
I don't like festivals. I hate them.
What's to hate about festivals?
I don't like fun. I don't like... what is there to like?
There's no bands on this particular tour that you've
I
connected
love all the
with,
bands.
yeah.
Every one of the bands rules. I mean, like, you know, Beach House and Ariel Pink are close friends.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had the most fun hanging out with them. Especially, I've been hanging out a lot with Ariel's group, and I mean, I enjoy that, but that's not the festival, you know. That's the hotel room at 2:00 in the morning. Festivals suck because you're an artist and you're behind this fence, and the audience is like this herded around, and it's like there's no interaction, and it's just annoying. And I mean, I get people would say, well, why don't you go out and interact with the audience? Because it's like there's no way to interact with single people. You're interacting with this giant group. It's almost like there's no chance for one-on-one interaction. And like that's the way it is at Coachella. It's like if I walked out into the crowd at Coachella, it's like people would just run up and ask to take pictures for their Facebook pages or something. It's just not very stimulating. It's very sort of dull. You know, this can maybe help not hurt people's feelings. I don't like, you know, the circus. I don't like going to, you know, block parties. I don't like parties. I hate them. I don't like fun, like in the traditional sense, you know, what people think of as fun. I don't drink a bunch of beers and, you know, go dancing or some shit. It's just not my thing, you know. I don't look down on it, which I know is what people think. I'm sure that, like, if people listen to this interview, they're going to be like, God, he thinks he's better than everybody else. He wants to just sit in his room all day, you know, what a dick. Whatever, I don't care. It's just not my thing. I enjoy the company of friends and making new friends And I find that a festival is a hard place to do that. It's like high school football game or something. You know, there's a lot of people, but you just don't know how to interact. There's just this awkwardness.
Is there any pressure to sort of play, you know, the hits and play to the crowd?
I don't deal with that kind of stuff. If people don't ask us back the next time, then at least I played a set I liked, hopefully.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, we don't try to deny people stuff. I mean, we don't try to be... I think it's, you know, arrogant for a band to, like, not play what people want to hear to an extent. But I battle with that because I'd rather hear a band enjoying making music than hear a band reciting something that they felt strongly about 5 years ago. I mean, if I have to play a Helicopter one more time, I'm going to throw up. I really don't like playing that song anymore.